Ronald, can you talk a little bit about some of your early memories that are part of your story and how they shaped you? Obviously, your character.
I grew up with a sense of question. How could this happen? How could charismatic authority go so awry? What is the difference between leadership and misleadership? What were the fundamental diagnostic errors of an Adolf Hitler who sold his country a bag of fake goods in selling to them the illusion that he could create a 1,000-year Reich, or the illusion that the problem of our economic depression, which was a global depression in 1933, could be solved by eliminating this community or eliminating that community. The fake solutions that he sold were sellable, marketable, because people were in despair. So these were the problems that gripped me. And I was organizing for Robert Kennedy in California as a 17-year-old kid. The night he was assassinated, I was at the Ambassador Hotel, where he was assassinated. These were, this was my upbringing, was this struggle for civil rights and
justice.
for justice. And seeing that people in leadership struggled and also endangered themselves. These core questions then shaped the direction of my life and work.
Ethical leaders are leaders who remember, retell, and relive the story, especially their stories. Are there places in your own story where you have retold the story or reframed it and thought differently of the narrative? How do you do this?
I think one of the most powerful tools is this tool that you're teaching of reframing. I retell lots of stories, some of them personal stories, some of them cases from around the world, some of them events like the civil rights, some of them biblical stories. The biblical stories are particularly important because they anchor people's understanding of the world, but they need to be reframed, refashioned, so that they don't hold people in a past, but help people build from a history into a future. And many of these stories can then be used, as departure points. So when I tell the story of Moses, for example, and I tell various stories about Moses and the Exodus, I use the story, I frame the story to help us understand how to move through moments of despair when he falls on his face, how to accept consultation when his father-in-law comes and says, you're going to wear yourself out, you got to organize.
Great leadership lesson.
How to move from the technical problem of just getting the people to the promised land to the adaptive challenge of building the self-governing capacity out of a slave-minded community that views itself as grasshoppers. How do you take these people that think they're grasshoppers in the eyes of these giants and therefore want to go back to Egypt when they finally get to the promised land within about 18 months? How do you then move through the despair of thinking you're done with the job and realize it's going to take another 40 years of staying in the desert in developing the capacity of your people? I tell these stories and reframe them as a way to help people understand the requirements and the demands and the humanity of the practice of leadership required of them.